Clara adjusted the simple scarf around her neck as she stepped through the gates of the prestigious racetrack, the midday sun casting sharp shadows over the gleaming rows of luxury cars. The roar of engines and the excited chatter of well-dressed spectators filled the air, a world apart from her quiet routine. She had come as a favor to her friend, hoping to enjoy the adrenaline and spectacle without drawing attention. Yet every head that turned toward her plain blouse and worn jeans whispered a silent narrative that she didn't belong here. Near the pit lane, surrounded by polished vehicles and men in tailored suits, stood Vanessa. With her flawless posture, sharp gaze, and a laugh that cut through the buzz, Vanessa was the unmistakable queen of this elite gathering. As an accomplished racer with a reputation for both skill and scorn, she commanded respect, as well as fear, from those who dared to cross her path. Her glossy blonde hair shimmered in the sunlight as she chatted with her usual entourage, exchanging knowing glances and subtle nods. Clara moved closer, curiosity battling the flutter in her chest. She glanced at the cars, at the drivers, at the sleek machinery that seemed a world away from her quiet life. Before she could fully settle into the moment, Vanessa's eyes caught sight of her. A slow, mocking smile crept over Vanessa's face as she stepped forward, voice carrying easily above the crowd. Well, Vanessa said with a cruel tilt of her head, I wasn't expecting to see just anyone wandering around here. This clearly isn't the place for simple folk to play pretend. Her tone was sharp, dismissive, and unmistakably aimed to wound. The people nearby chuckled uneasily as Vanessa's gaze froze on Clara, the unspoken message clear: she didn't belong. Vanessa's words hung in the air like a sudden chill, spreading through the crowd in hushed undertones. Clara tried to shrink into herself, the heat of embarrassment rising to her cheeks as multiple pairs of eyes darted toward her, some curious, others amused, and a few openly judgmental. She clutched her small handbag tighter, willing her pulse to slow, but the scene continued to unfold with merciless precision. Without hesitation, Vanessa turned on her heel and raised a perfectly manicured hand, signaling toward a stout man stationed nearby, one of the security personnel. Escort this lady out. She's disrupting the atmosphere. We can't have just anyone wandering where they don't belong, Vanessa said, her voice dripping with an icy authority that brooked no argument. The security guard approached, his expression unreadable, though his eyes flicked toward Clara with a mix of uncertainty and compliance. Excuse me, ma'am, I'll have to ask you to leave the premises now. Clara swallowed hard, stepping forward in a weak attempt to explain. I'm sorry, I'm just here as a guest of my friend. I didn't mean to cause any trouble. Please. Vanessa interrupted with a sharp, dismissive laugh. A guest? I doubt anyone here invited the likes of you. This is an event reserved for those who understand the sport, the pedigree, the status, not for spectators who barely know a wheel from a windshield. The surrounding crowd shifted, some nodding in agreement, others avoiding eye contact but joining in the laughter. A woman in an elegant red dress whispered to her companion and smirked, while a few men exchanged glances, their expressions laced with superiority. The whispering swelled into a murmur that swallowed Clara whole. Stung, Clara felt an overwhelming mixture of shame and anger. She'd come with no illusions of grandeur, but this public humiliation cut deeper than she had anticipated. She stepped back, tearing her gaze away from Vanessa's piercing eyes, looking instead at the ground for a moment, heart pounding in her chest. I didn't mean to be out of place, Clara murmured, voice barely above the din. She turned toward the exit, the guard subtly beginning to guide her away. But just as she took a few steps, Vanessa's voice rang out again. Wait, she said, loud enough for all to hear, before you leave, why don't you prove what you're really worth? Maybe there's more to this simple woman than meets the eye. She cast a disdainful glance that suggested a challenge, but also a cruel sort of game. Several guests turned toward Clara, curiosity edged with ridicule clear in their widening eyes. Vanessa continued with a wicked grin, there's a surprise race coming up. We'll see how well you handle a car before the whole crowd. Or is the good sport gone when the spotlight's truly on you? Clara froze. The murmurs swelled louder, some guests laughing outright, others exchanging incredulous looks. The security guard hesitated, glancing at Vanessa uncertainly. Vanessa's gaze bored into him with silent command, and he nodded reluctantly. An official stepped forward, holding a small stack of papers with car assignments. You have the chance to drive in the next race. You're to take the blue car, the one by the third pit. Panic prickled at Clara's spine as she looked toward the designated vehicle, its polished exterior shimmering under the sun. She had never been behind the wheel of such a powerful machine, let alone in front of a crowd. Her hands trembled slightly, the reality of the moment crashing upon her like ice-cold water. The crowd around her buzzed with anticipation. Vanessa's eyes gleamed triumphantly, as if she expected Clara to falter spectacularly and become an object of amusement. Clara's throat tightened. She tried to gather her thoughts, but the jeering and whispers clung to her like a heavy fog. The thought of leaving, of slipping quietly away, tugged desperately at her like a lifeline. But the weight of countless judgmental stares kept her rooted to the spot. I'm not sure I can, Clara stammered, her voice thin and uncertain. Her fingers caught at the scarf clinging to her neck. I don't know how to. Vanessa's voice cut through her hesitation with icy mockery. Not sure. That's the spirit. Let's give you a minute to reconsider, because trust me, everyone's watching. The crowd settled into a hush, the social elite leaning in, ready for a spectacle. Somewhere from the edges, a few sympathetic voices whispered encouragement, but mostly it was anticipation glazed with cruelty. Clara glanced around, faces gleaming with impatience, slim smiles feigning encouragement but packed with skepticism. Her heart hammered wildly against her ribs as her mind raced, adrenaline mingling with dread. Trying to steady her breath, Clara forced herself toward the blue car. The scent of gasoline and heated rubber filled the air. The low hum of engines pulsed beneath the soaring cheers and claps from the crowd. Vanessa stepped forward, lowering her voice just enough for Clara alone to hear. Remember, you're the simple woman out of place here. So don't make this worse. Clara felt the sting of the words but also something deeper, a flicker of determination that pushed back at the tide of humiliation. She circled the car, palms sweaty but slowly calming as the familiar shape of the steering wheel and gearshift took form under her fingertips. She climbed in, igniting the engine. The powerful roar reverberated through her chest. Eyes tracked her every move. Vanessa's lips curled into a satisfied smirk, certain of the impending disaster. The pit crew moved aside, and the announcer's voice boomed over the loudspeakers. Ladies and gentlemen, an unexpected entry for the upcoming race, Clara, stepping in for the first time on these grounds. Let's see what she's got. The racetrack stretched ahead, a daunting ribbon of asphalt winding beneath the glaring sun. Clara's hands gripped the wheel tightly, her breath measured as she pressed the accelerator gently, easing the car forward. The initial laps were tentative. The crowd murmured, some laughing, some whispering in disbelief. Clara's heart thudded against the cage of her ribs, muscles stiff with nervous energy. Vanessa's eyes never left the track, sharp and unforgiving as the queen she believed herself to be. As Clara rounded the first bend, something shifted within her. Years of quiet practice, hidden away from judgmental eyes, came rushing forward. The rhythm of the car, the pulse of the engine, and the sensation of speed awakened a confidence she hadn't dared to show before. Lap by lap, Clara grew surer, her movements more fluid and precise. The crowd's murmurs evolved from skepticism to quiet astonishment. Spectators leaned forward, some cheering softly, others casting glances tinged with newfound respect. Vanessa's smirk faltered slightly, lips tightening as Clara powered through the final lap with control and grace that no one anticipated. The checkered flag waved, signaling the race's end. Clara's car slowed, the engine's roar fading into the background noise of the now captivated crowd. The silence was palpable before it exploded into applause, genuine, spontaneous, and robust. Heads turned toward Vanessa, their expressions a mix of surprise and awkward realization as they reevaluated their earlier judgments. Clara stepped out of the car, cheeks flushed with exertion and emotion. She lifted her gaze to meet Vanessa's, who now struggled to mask her discomfort. The tables had turned in ways no one, least of all Vanessa, had expected. Clara's breath finally slowed, replaced by a quiet triumph that echoed louder than the crowd's applause. Suddenly, the racetrack wasn't just a place of privilege and appearance, it had become a stage on which true skill and quiet strength could not be denied. The applause continued to swell as Clara stepped from the sleek blue car, her hands still tingling from the grip on the steering wheel and the adrenaline coursing through her veins. For a moment, time seemed to stretch, every eye fixed on her figure, no longer the timid outsider, but a force capable of commanding the attention of an entire elite crowd. The lingering whispers that once surrounded her were replaced by genuine murmurs of admiration. Vanessa stood off to the side, an icy stillness gripping her. Her signature smirk had vanished, replaced by a tight-lipped expression that betrayed shock mingled with a flicker of respect she was clearly reluctant to admit. The crowd around her divided, some participants looked away, uncomfortable with the abrupt reversal of fortune, while others whispered approvingly to themselves. Several guests, previously chuckling and exchanging condescending glances, now shifted awkwardly, exchanging looks that invited silent reconsideration. A man with salt and pepper hair muttered to his companion, "I underestimated her." Even the woman in the red dress who had earlier whispered mockery appeared flushed, her smile fading. Clara climbed down from the car with a steady grace. The race had tested more than her driving, it had challenged the expectations pinned on her by voices that presumed to categorize her by appearance and status. She glanced toward Vanessa, who held the gaze, her own eyes narrowing, not with disdain now, but with a begrudging acknowledgement. There was no longer room for dismissiveness. The announcer's voice crackled over the loudspeakers, cutting through the mixture of stunned silence and applause. That was an unexpected and thrilling performance from Clara, certainly a driver to watch in future races. His tone was enthusiastic, tinged with surprise, energizing the crowd's renewed enthusiasm. A young man standing nearby, his racing suit unzipped and slung over his shoulder, approached Clara hesitantly. "Hey, that was amazing. You really surprised everyone. Do you race professionally?" His voice was genuine, devoid of the snobbery that had permeated the earlier encounters. Clara smiled softly, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I have, yes," she admitted. "I took some time away from it. This was unexpected, but I'm grateful for the chance." As conversations buzzed around her, Vanessa cleared her throat sharply, stepping forward with a controlled voice meant to reclaim some semblance of authority. "Well, now that we've seen Clara's unexpected skills, perhaps we can proceed with the race as planned. No one doubts talent when it's right in front of them." Her words, while measured, carried a slightly hollow ring. Though she maintained her poise, a flash of vulnerability had pierced her carefully cultivated image, a sign that Clara's driving had disrupted not only expectations but also Vanessa's sense of control. The crowd's attention shifted, but the impact lingered. Throughout the event, pockets of spectators found themselves discussing the surprise performance, reflecting on their own quick judgments and assumptions. The tight-knit group of elite racers, usually bound by an unspoken code of exclusivity, now faced a subtle but palpable shift in attitude. Later, in the quieter moments after the race, Clara found herself approached by the event's organizer, a composed woman named Evelyn, whose usual stern demeanor softened as she spoke. "Clara, that was remarkable. I'm sorry for the way things unfolded earlier. It's clear we misjudged you." Clara nodded, accepting the apology but her expression carrying quiet dignity rather than resentment. "Thank you. I've learned not to expect kindness from everyone, but it felt important to show who I really am." Evelyn smiled, a hint of warmth touching her eyes. "We'd be delighted to have you back for upcoming competitions." Your passion and skill would be welcome here. The offer was more than an invitation, it was an acknowledgement of Clara's rightful place among this world, a world she had never sought out but now seemed ready to embrace on her terms. Vanessa observed the exchange from a distance, her posture rigid. A subtle tightening in her jaw betrayed her internal struggle. The once undisputed queen now faced a challenge to her reign, not just behind the wheel but in the social order she upheld. What unsettled Vanessa most was that Clara's triumph had emerged not through flashiness or arrogance, but through quiet competence and unapologetic authenticity. It was a confrontation with the very elitism Vanessa embodied, a stark reminder that skill and heart could not be measured by status or attire. As the event drew to a close, Clara felt a bittersweet mixture of exhaustion and exhilaration. Driving the car had reignited an old flame within her, a part of herself she thought she had left behind. Yet the battle against prejudice and scorn reminded her that the path ahead would demand more than talent, it would require resilience. The crowd dispersed gradually, but the ripple effects of Clara's performance persisted. Her victory had shattered the illusions of exclusivity, inviting others to reconsider the unspoken hierarchies they upheld. Standing by the edge of the track, Clara took a deep breath, savoring the moment. The sun cast long shadows, the day's heat giving way to a gentle evening breeze. Though she had entered this world as a simple woman, she was leaving it altered, and altering it in turn. The question that lingered among the lingering watchers was no longer whether Clara belonged, but how the established order would respond to her undeniable presence. In the hushed aftermath, Vanessa approached Clara with measured steps. Her voice, stripped of earlier venom but tinged with an awkward humility, broke the silence. "You were impressive. I didn't expect that." Clara met her gaze steadily, a calm smile stretching across her face. "Neither did I," she replied. The room felt charged with possibility, the old rules unsettled. In that exchange lay the quiet promise of change, born from the courage to drive beyond the limits imposed by others. As night fell over the racetrack, the elite circle had found itself quietly challenged, and Clara had already begun to write a new chapter in their story. The evening sun dipped lower, casting a soft glow over the emptying racetrack, its gleaming asphalt now cooling and quiet. Clara stood near the pits, the rumble of engines and the excited chatter now replaced by the gentle murmur of departing guests and the distant hum of cleaning crews preparing for tomorrow's events. Yet amidst the fading bustle, a calm settled over her, the kind that arises when a long-hidden truth finally finds its place beneath the light. The crowd's earlier surprise still echoed faintly in the echoes of conversations, whispers of a woman who had endured scorn from the elite and then humbled them all with her skill. But few knew the deeper story beneath Clara's simple exterior, her plain clothes, and reserved manner. It was time, perhaps, to reveal a truth she had kept closely guarded. Evelyn, the event organizer who had approached her moments after the race, lingered nearby, her curiosity apparent yet respectful. "Clara," she said quietly, "if you don't mind sharing, what brought you here dressed like this? I mean, your talent speaks volumes, but your clothes tell another story." Clara smiled wryly, feeling the gap between perception and reality widen before her. "I haven't always dressed like this," she admitted softly. "I was once fully immersed in the racing world, competing professionally, traveling circuits, surrounded by the same kind of opulence and expectations we saw today. But life has its own roads." Her gaze drifted across the track, memories settling in. "I took a break to care for a family member who fell ill. Simple days, away from the spotlight. I wanted to live quietly, avoid drawing attention to myself. So, I dressed plainly, blended into ordinary spaces where no one expected much. I guess I hope to be judged solely on who I am, not what I wear or where I come from." Evelyn nodded slowly, her expression softening into understanding. "That makes your resilience even more remarkable. To return to a place that judged you so quickly and reveal your true self takes courage." Clara's eyes held a distant light, a flicker of that inner strength. "It felt necessary." More than proving a point, it was about reminding myself that passion shouldn't be hidden, no matter the world's expectations. As they talked, Vanessa approached from behind, her presence unmistakable. The earlier arrogance was tempered now, replaced by a measured quietness. She stopped a few feet away, voice steady but lacking its usual sharp edge. "Clara," Vanessa began cautiously, "I owe you an apology. I was wrong to judge you so harshly. Today showed me that skill and character aren't measured by attire or background." Clara met Vanessa's eyes, offering a nod of acknowledgement rather than triumph. "Thank you. It's difficult to be seen for what you truly are when preconceptions cloud the view." Vanessa hesitated, then added, "Perhaps there's something I could learn from your example." A faint smile played on Clara's lips. "We all can, I think." In the middle of this unexpected reconciliation, Evelyn stepped in. "Vanessa, Clara's driving and attitude have already changed many minds today. I believe this is a chance for us all to grow beyond old divisions." Vanessa gave a small, uncertain nod, the weight of the day's lessons settling in. Around them, the elite circle began to shift, conversations softening, eyes opening to new possibilities. As dusk deepened into night, Clara reflected on her journey, not just behind the wheel or through the social rifts, but the personal path of rediscovering confidence and the strength in being unapologetically herself. Her simple clothing no longer felt like camouflage but a quiet statement. Beneath ordinary fabric beat the heart of a woman who had conquered more than a racetrack. She had overcome prejudice and self-doubt alike. Looking toward the horizon, Clara felt ready, not just to race, but to take her rightful place in a world that had once tried to dismiss her. The racetrack the next day would be different, and so would she. The morning sun spilled golden light over the racetrack, igniting the polished surfaces of high-performance cars and promising a day charged with speed and competition. Yet beneath the sparkle of engines and the hum of anticipation, subtle shifts were already underway, change quietly rippling through a community long steeped in tradition and exclusivity. Vanessa arrived early, her usual confident stride replaced by a more measured pace. The events of the previous day had unsettled her, not merely because Clara had outshone her on the track, but because the incident had exposed a vulnerability she could no longer disguise. Turning heads now met her without the deference she'd taken for granted, and murmurs followed her steps, questions about her attitude and conduct circulating among the event organizers and fellow racers. Approaching the administrative tent, Vanessa found herself greeted by a stern expression from Evelyn, the event's unyielding organizer. "Vanessa," Evelyn began without preamble, "your behavior yesterday, particularly the public denigration of Clara, was inappropriate and does not align with the spirit of this competition." Vanessa's lips pressed into a thin line, eyes flickering with an internal struggle. "I was defending the integrity of the event," she replied carefully. "We can't just have anyone strolling in, thinking they can compete with a history they don't belong to." Evelyn's gaze hardened. "This isn't about origin or appearances. It's about talent, sportsmanship, and respect. Your actions crossed a line. We've received complaints from several guests, and the board will be reviewing your participation status going forward." The weight of those words settled heavily on Vanessa. The privileged immunity she once wielded was slipping, replaced by accountability. As she left the tent, whispers trailed in her wake, a stark reminder that respect must be earned, not demanded. Meanwhile, across the paddock, Clara prepared herself for the day's upcoming race, her heartbeat steady, a calm determination rooted in the knowledge that she had already triumphed over the toughest challenge, prejudice. Invitations from other drivers and even sponsors had begun to arrive, extending opportunities she had never imagined given her low profile and self-imposed retreat from professional racing. With a quiet smile, Clara donned her racing suit, each movement purposeful and imbued with renewed confidence. The earlier humiliation seemed a distant memory, overshadowed by the respect now surrounding her, respect she had earned through silent strength and undeniable skill. As she tested the engine, the unmistakable ring of her phone interrupted the pre-race focus. It was her longtime friend Jonas calling. He had been the one to encourage her to attend the event, believing in her potential even when she doubted herself. "Clara," Jonas's voice was warm and proud, "I saw the race. You left everyone speechless. Sometimes the world needs a reminder not to judge on the surface." Clara laughed softly. It was humbling, yet exhilarating. "I'm ready to get back to racing, on my terms." Jonas's enthusiasm spilled through the line. "We'll celebrate together soon. I'm telling everyone that it was the comeback story of the year." After ending the call, Clara's gaze settled on the track, feeling the familiar surge that always came with the promise of speed and competition, the same surge that no luxury or status could replicate. The day's races unfolded with intensity and excitement, and Clara's presence alone invigorated the atmosphere. Her refined technique and calm precision on the course won applause lap after lap. Spectators cheered not just for her skill, but for the grace with which she carried herself amidst scrutiny and newfound admiration. Vanessa watched from the sidelines, her expression unreadable but tinged with a mix of regret and grudging respect. After the last race, away from cameras and crowds, she approached Clara quietly. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry for how I acted. It was unfair and out of line," Vanessa admitted, eyes lowered. "You've shown me that there's more to this sport, and to people, than I ever realized." Clara met her gaze, the sting of past humiliation softened by genuine forgiveness. "Thank you, Vanessa. It's never too late to learn." Their handshake was simple but meaningful, a subtle bridge over the divide that had once seemed unshakable. In the weeks that followed, the racing community saw changes echoing beyond the track. Vanessa took on a more reflective role, moderating her arrogance and embracing a spirit of inclusivity. Meanwhile, Clara embraced new opportunities, invitations to international competitions, sponsorship offers, and a fresh platform to inspire others who felt unseen or underestimated. Her story became a reminder that true worth is measured not by outward appearances or social standing, but by talent, integrity, and the courage to persist in the face of adversity. As Clara prepared for a new race, the sun rising behind her like a promise, she looked toward the path ahead with quiet confidence. The simple woman who had once stood nervously outside the gates was now a symbol of perseverance and grace. If you found Clara's journey inspiring, imagine what strength lies within your own story. Share your thoughts in the comments. How would you respond when faced with unfair judgment? If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe for more tales of resilience and hope. See you in our next story.